Okay, last camera angle now, camera angle 4. We're going to go in and synchronize this the same exact way that we've synchronized cameras 1 through 3. Make sure that when you bring in your camera angle, you're not, putting it over any of the other audio or video. We need to be bringing it in on different layers. So we need a 4th layer for the video and a 4th layer for the audio. Then we'll select everything, right click, press synchronize. As you can see, that last video file completely synchronized. And if we did want to go ahead and click in between the space again, press delete on our keyboard, we would now have a complete podcast ready to edit with 3 camera angles, that wide camera angle 1, and this guest. But we do have another camera angle, right? We have this camera angle 3, we titled it, all right? And we need to synchronize that as well, okay? So just like this camera angle that we just synchronized, there's probably only 1 or 2 files for this camera angle. So what I'm going to do, and I know this can be a little bit confusing, but I am going to go ahead and highlight all of these different layers where we've made cuts and just drag these files out of the synchronization. Okay, now we know that these 3 camera angles synchronize. We know that they line up with the rest of the footage, but if we synchronized everything, the software would just get too confused. Okay, so we need to go one step at a time. I'm going to be dragging out this file here and putting that on the very top, since this is our guest that talks the least amount. Okay, we're going to select everything, right click and click synchronize. Selecting audio, press OK. Now you notice here we did not actually highlight V4 and A5 this time. So sometimes you don't need to. Sometimes it will synchronize, but other times that's one of the 6 hacks that I mentioned and tricks you can learn more about on the website 8042media.com. All right, so this is going to synchronize, and I'm going to show you exactly how to synchronize the final clip before we start editing right after this is done processing. All right, so the processing is done, clipped, easily synchronized. We can go ahead and play it.
Sharing with me, like, here's my program. I'm like, why is that in there like that?
All right, and finally, we're going to go ahead and take this middle section, put it here, and then we're going to synchronize this end clip. All right, and so for your podcast, of course, it's going to look slightly different, but just getting all of the clips synchronized can be one of the most challenging parts, but it's very important. And instead of doing it manually with this many camera angles, this is kind of the maximum amount of camera angles. That's why I wanted to include it in this product. Again, once we drag that over without overlapping any layers, we can right click and press synchronize. But if you can understand and follow along rewatching this process of how to synchronize, all these different clips, multiple videos per camera angle for the entire podcast, moving forward, any podcast you shoot in the future will be no problem. It's going to take some practice. And in an ideal world, if you had just set up 3-4 cameras and let them run the entire podcast, and they didn't have to restart or restop at any point in time, well, this is a piece of cake. You can pretty much just fast forward through this section and get right to editing the show. But this is in depth. It covers a lot, and I hope that it provided some value and answers a lot of questions. If at any point in time you need to come back and review how to synchronize, up to 4 different camera angles and 5 different audio tracks in your timeline. So we're going to process this. Then the final piece of this tutorial is we're going to condense all these different clips and synchronizations into one easy file that we can then start editing. And we're going to move forward and edit in the next video. All right, so that finished processing. So now what we can do is we can click in this space, we can delete, and we can click in this space, we can delete. And you'll see that we have kind of a nice nicely organized podcast. Now, there's little gaps, right, in between when these cameras had to start and reset. And then it looks like there's, this green produced audio podcast file just does not stop at any point in time. That was the original audio file that we synchronized everything to.